Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. I hope everyone out there is doing good, doing fine, good health, with toils and tribulations to a minimum. I am wanting to thank all those good people that have subscribed, that watch the videos, that leave comments. I also want to thank all the other people out there that do Gen X content. Everyone, keep doing what you're doing a good job at it. Today, I had to run into town, and while in town, I had the radio on. Normally, when I'm going from my place into town, I listen to an audiobook or Spotify or something. But when running around town, I usually just listen to the radio. And I listened to two songs that kind of put me in a kind of a philosophical mood. One song is Silent Running by Mike and Mechanics. The other song is It's the End of the World as We Know It by R.E.M. And those songs, very 80s songs, very much part of my childhood, very much the MTV generation. Both songs, mainly the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine by R.E.M. You go back, if you look at things, that statement that the world, it's the end of the world as we know it, is constantly true. If you look at all the things, just even in my lifetime, the puny 53 years that I've been on this planet, the world as we knew it ended on September 11th, September 11th, 2001. The world ended as we knew it when the attempted assassination of Reagan. The world ended as we knew it with the fall of communism, fall of the Soviet Union. The world ended as we know it when the Berlin Wall came down. So that ties into the philosophy of birth, death, rebirth, death, rebirth, and it's, I mean, you can go all the way back to all your major historical events: fall of Rome, the rise of Rome, fall of Greece, because all of those things changed the world. They killed the old world, and a new world was built out of it. Industrial Revolution is a big one. The opening line, when it talks about Lenny Bruce, he's not afraid, goes back to Lenny Bruce pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable language, acceptable thought. He got arrested along with a young and up-and-coming comedian at the time by the name of George Carlin. We know how that influenced Carlin. Well, most people my age, or most people in my social circles, know who George Carlin is. If you don't, go to YouTube. Well, you're already on YouTube. Google George Carlin. Listen to some of his bits. He does a lot of his comedy. You can trace it back to when Lenny Bruce changed the world by pushing those boundaries, by putting himself out there to get arrested and fighting it. And to a smaller degree in people's personal lives. When you move from elementary school to middle school, and when you move from middle school to high school, then when you move from high school to college, then when you leave college into the real world, each one of those occurrences kill the world as you knew it, as your past years of experience, because you've changed. You've had to kill that world to move on. And there's a Bible verse, I think it's in Corinthians, it may be 2 Corinthians, that says, when I was a child, I thought and acted like a child. When I became an adult, I had to set aside childish ways. I'm paraphrasing, of course, because I didn't look it up before I decided to do this video. But this whole death and rebirth, it's not a physical death or a total destruction, apocalyptic death. But every so often, we personally change. We kill off that old world we lived in. And we build a new world. When my first wife died from colon cancer, that destroyed that world. And I had to build a new world for myself out of that. So yeah, when something happens, bad, good, or indifferent, and you understand how this death and rebirth works, and you open yourself up to it. Had to spit, had a bunch of loogies in my mouth. This death and rebirth. Hell, the internet killed my world. I went from a world with, physically putting a phone into a modem in junior high and high school to now just sit down at a computer and boom, the internet's there. I mean, it can be argued that's just an advancement, but in order for it to advance, it had to kill, it had to leave behind, it had to let die the things that preceded it. And I honestly believe that that's how we grow, by letting things die. Sometimes we have to go out ourselves, kill it ourselves. My sinuses are crazy today. But this whole thing of when things stagnate, they die. And that's what happens. You watch a plant grow. You plant a seed, it grows, it grows, it grows, it does its thing, flowers, goes to seed or produces fruit, then dies. So the seeds or the fruit in the seeds can bring about the next crop or the next generation. Yes, there are plants that are perennial that stay alive, but the surface, what we see, will die. the top of the plant in the winter will freeze and die off, and the roots come the following spring, summer, depending on what plant it is reborn. Trees, deciduous trees, will lose their leaves, and in the springtime they're reborn, greener, prettier, hopefully a little bit bigger. And that's just how things go. It's a constant thing of change. And the Silent Running by Mike and the Mechanics, that is a song about fighting tyranny. It is a very, very Reagan era song. Because growing up in the 80s, Cold War, and on a military base, or near a, I was in Carver's Cove, Fort Hood was like right there, but everyone knew that Reagan was going to get us into a shooting nuclear war. It never happened, thankfully. In fact, Reagan's insane spending on the military, and the Russians couldn't keep, or the Soviet Union, I shouldn't say the Russians, I should say the Soviet Union, with Russia being the mother country, couldn't keep up, and they basically went bankrupt. So yeah, when the Soviet Union fell, you had that death, and Russia as a country rose up out of those ashes. Now Russia looks like they're dying again, but I've drifted off subject. The Mike and Mechanics song, Silent Running, both these songs, if you've never heard them, I suggest you would be cool to go and listen to them. Also, Boys of Summer is another good song to listen to. It has really good deep messages in it. But I can't get comfortable, my legs. But the song Silent Running is a very dystopian song. Very, very much the end, a rise of a totalitarian government. The song never explicitly says whether or not it's internal or external. You get the idea of some kind of conflict, that a person, a resistance fighter, a rebel, whatever you want to call them, has left his family. He's told them, look, you go, you pledge allegiance to whatever flag they offer, you go to church, you pray to whoever they tell you to pray, but you teach your kids. You teach your kids in private, and you teach them. Teach them how things should be, not how things are. And hopefully, at some point, enough people get together and force a revolution, force a change, force killing the world as they knew it, and building another world out of the ashes. And I will admit, when I was a lot younger, those are just cool songs, you know. Really, really good. If I remember, when I post this, I'll try to put YouTube links to Boys of Summer, It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine, and Silent Running. Just because those three songs have a surface layer, and they have a very philosophical layer to them. Touch on Boys of Summer. That song is about, it's a love song is what it is. It's about a guy falls in love with a girl, then at some point, for whatever reason, it doesn't explain, they separate, and this is him lamenting about how he loved her and would always be there for her even after the summertime, when the beaches are empty, when there's no one around, that he'd be there for her, and he doesn't understand how and why the relationship failed. But that it's a beautiful song. There's one of the lyrics is, I saw a dead head sticker on a Cadillac. A little voice in my head told me you can't look back, you can never look back. That is an acknowledgement of you can't live in the past. Those of you who don't know what a deadhead is people that followed the Grateful Dead. Very much a big part of my adolescence, my youth growing up. Then as the Grateful Dead started getting old and Miles caught up to them, they started dying. Pretty much a natural occurrence. So I remember when Jerry Garcia died. That was, for me, a very emotional moment. Just as emotional when John Lennon was assassinated. It's just, let's see, and now we're looping back to it's the end of the world. If you keep in mind that good and evil are very thin lines, and there's a huge void of gray between them, good being white, evil being black, and there's this whole peripheral of gray between them. Not everyone is totally evil, and not everyone is totally good. For the most part, except for occasions, people such as, say, Mother Teresa or Jeffrey Dahmer, which live on both extremes, most people fall in this gray area. How dark gray you are, how light gray you are, it depends on you and how you live your life. It's just things that age allows you to pull out of things from your youth. It's just those things. I love when you hear something, especially like today. I was just running around town. I was picking a couple things up for dinner tonight, and boom, I was listening to these songs on the radio, and it hit me. It just, boom, like a light switch turned on. I love it when that happens. I love that epiphany or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. That, oh, okay. Before today, I did not know that. Or I didn't see it that way. And just everything emotionally, psychologically line up for that to pop into your brain. I love epiphanies like that. I say epiphany simply because I would never ever consider myself wise or enlightened. Actually, I'm far, far from it. It is just stuff, that kind of knowledge, that kind of intelligence, that kind of looking at the world is far from my grasp at this point in my life. But it's opening myself up to it and allowing it to happen gets me incrementally closer each time something like that happens. And that's what we have to do. We have to allow for change. We have to unlearn things that we don't need anymore. We have to unlearn the old and embrace the new. Because that's the only way we keep from permanently ending the world as we know it, or ending the world, period. Not as we know it, just ending the world. It is what it is, people. We'll let that bump around your heads for a little while. Let that go. If you have any insights from other songs, modern songs, old songs, classical music, anything from there, feel free to put it in the comments. It's just one of those things. It's by sharing knowledge and sharing viewpoints, it's how we grow. So, until next time, peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?